Now, moving into step number 7 is the vehicle maintenance program. Now, vehicle maintenance, it starts with our employees. We train our employees to make sure all trucks follow all state and federal regulations and that are safe to operate on the motoring public. It is not just the management team, not just our mechanic team, but also every driver is responsible for the vehicle that they're driving. They're responsible to make sure that that vehicle they're going to drive for that day follows all state, federal regulations, is going out with no defects, and that they understand that they are responsible if they get pulled over and get a violation or they get a citation, that is going to be on them. It is their responsibility to make sure that they let us know as managers or as AOs if there are defects in those vehicles, because if that's the case, we're not going to put that vehicle out in the motoring public. Number 2, we want to make sure that monthly maintenance records are done and complete and submitted on time. We want to make sure that we keep them on file also, but we want to make sure that we're doing our monthly records on time. Number 3, annual vehicle inspection records, which is a federal annual report. We want to make sure that we get those done and completed and submitted on time. On our website, we also have all of our vehicles there, so we know when a vehicle is going to expire or the annual vehicle inspection record is going to expire or needs to be redone again. So we get an alert so we know what vehicles, so we can make sure we get them inspected and completed and submitted on time so that those vehicles will not have to be put out of service, that we will continue to use those vehicles. The other thing is we want to make sure that the annual vehicle inspection record report is in a truck. Each truck should have their own, and also there's a sticker that needs to be placed in that vehicle. Number 4, and this is very crucial, drivers are not allowed to operate any vehicles that are not safe for the motoring public. This is something that our drivers need to understand. It should be in the handbook written there that drivers are not allowed to operate any vehicle that are not safe for the motoring public. If they find a defect, it is their responsibility to let management know or let our mechanic know, and we will make a decision what we're going to do with that vehicle. It is so important that when our drivers do their post trip, if they find a defect the night before, to please let us know. It is their responsibility to let us know, because if it's just a headlight that's out and they put it on the DVIR report, but they didn't let a manager know and we didn't catch it till the next morning, that vehicle cannot go out until that headlight is replaced. And sometimes that could take an extra hour or 2 extra hours. So if we could do that the night before, if the drivers will let us know on post trip, which is the night before, hey, I just noticed my headlight's out, we will have a good chance to fix it that night so that the next morning that vehicle is good to go. So again, we want to hold drivers accountable, that they need to let us know. But the most important thing, they need to know that they cannot operate a vehicle with defects out in the motoring public. That is what we call aiding or abetting. So it is driver's responsibility to let us know when a vehicle is not safe. Number 5, have a certified mechanic that can take care of your fleet. Now, when we are talking about brakes, installing brakes, fixing brakes, yes, we need a certified mechanic. But if you have to put like a clearance light, we could do those things ourselves. But a certified mechanic has to be the one that will do brakes. If we have a certified mechanic that did brakes in our vehicle and something went wrong and our vehicle was in an accident, and inspectors came and inspected our vehicle and found that our brakes were not properly mounted, it could always go back down to that certified mechanic. But if we have my cousin Joe that knows how to do brakes, but he's not certified, we could get ourselves into trouble because it was not done by a certified mechanic. So let's be careful there that we have certified mechanics to do things that have to be handled by a certified mechanic. And again, that is in our handbook. So drivers need to understand what are some of the items that we could probably do ourselves. Minor things and easy things that we could just fix, taking out a burnt fuse and putting out a good fuse. You don't need pretty much a certified mechanic to do that. We could do those things ourselves. And again, number 6, file system. Keep monthly records of all vehicle maintenance on file. You never know when you might need to use those. Now, for myself, and there's a lot of contracts, we have where we file a lot of these things online. I have my website where we put a lot of my vehicle maintenance reports there. So I have pretty much everything on files. I don't have a lot of boxes anymore. But keep records of all your maintenance records, because you never know when you might need to bring those out for hopefully nothing bad. But if something bad happens, you have the maintenance records that can help you, knowing that your vehicle maintenance has been done on time every month. Moving to step number 8.
Safety technology is, I think, one of the biggest areas of safety that we've been focusing in the last few years. All of our vehicles have backing cameras. So important, because even though we try not to promote for our drivers to back, we still have to back in some areas. We also have a GPS system in every vehicle, basically to manage our crew a little bit better. You could see those little trucks, right? If we need to know exactly where they're at, we could click in the truck and it gives you the exact address, exactly where he's at. And it gives us an analysis, a detailed report, their speed, how many stops they did for the day, the areas that they were in. It also saves us money due to the fact that we're able to align these routes a little bit more efficient, so we could save money in fuel. And the savings in fuel will pay for the systems themselves. It's just a good investment that we could do, but the end result is to avoid accidents. And we've been seeing the benefit of no accidents, and we want to keep it that way.
So safety technology, it's placed in our vehicles for a couple of reasons. Number 1, a 3 camera system mounted on both sides and rear of vehicle helps improve visibility and reduce rear and side blind spot accidents. It's very important because on our vehicles, especially like our P1000s, even P700s, and straight truck, there's the blind spot is so big in our vehicles, and it's so easy to sidewipe a vehicle. So now that we have this 3 camera system, it's important that we train drivers how to use these cameras, because sometimes some of our vehicles may have 2 monitors now. Our drivers need to understand what monitor to look when you're backing, what monitor to look when you're turning. So the most important thing, we want to make sure we train our drivers, but the end result is to reduce accidents. Number 2, backing sensors will help reduce the common backing and overhead accidents. Now, the backing cameras and backing sensors are there for a reason, and it's to help us reduce the common accident that's backing. If we're still having backing accidents and we have our camera system, especially backing cameras and sensors, then there's something wrong. There's have to be some training that we need to do. So it's important not just to have the technology in our vehicle, but we still have to train drivers how to use this technology, making sure that the backing sensors are working properly, making sure that the cameras are working properly, because we do pay a lot of money in these cameras, and we want to make sure that we get the end result, which is no accidents. Number 3, Fleetmatic's GPS systems helps to monitor heart braking, heart acceleration, speeding, etc. This is part of our Better program. We want to make sure that we're training drivers how to drive this vehicle safely behind the wheel. Number 3 and number 4, which is the video event data recorder, the VEDR, will record driver behavior events in and outside of the vehicle. These two go hand in hand. What we need to get from these two is 2 reasons, and they're there for 2 reasons. 1, to identify driver behavior. Once we identify driver behavior, then we go to number 2, to perform in driver performance. When we train drivers, we want to improve in driver performance. Once we know what's the problem, we're going to do curative training. We're going to train We're going to educate our drivers. We're going to train our drivers to make sure that they understand how we need to move these vehicles and drive this vehicle, especially when it has to do with hard braking, hard turns, hard accelerations. Those are some of the things that are indicators that something bad can happen in the future. The video data recorder helps us identify and we could see the driver behavior. So again, it's important with this technology to make sure that we're using it properly to get the end result, and that is to avoid accidents. Number 5, anti-theft device enhance safety and vehicle security. Again, we want to make sure that our vehicles don't get stolen. We want to make sure we're secure in our vehicles. So this anti-device is just another device that can help us protect our vehicle from a theft or from somebody that's trying to break in and hopefully hotwire the vehicle and take it. But again, we want to make sure that we're taking care of our vehicles, that we're training our drivers how to take care of our vehicles, that we're training drivers how to use these cameras, how to use the backing sensors, and how to understand about hard braking, hard acceleration, and hard turning. Because a lot of these things, not only can it get our driver into an accident, but it's also hurting us in breakdowns because we may have to replace brakes a lot sooner for hard braking. So we want to also reduce the cost of maintenance. So we need drivers to take care of our vehicles, but we also want to be able to use this technology to identify all the driver behavior that we're seeing in our fleet, and how can we train and how can we improve in driver performance and get better drivers out on the roadways. Going to step number 9. Number 9 is probably one of the most important steps that I use in my fleet. It starts with evaluations. Evaluations to measure drivers' performance and safety results. We evaluate our new drivers quarterly. We want to make sure that our drivers are learning all aspects of their business, that they understand about service and safety out on the road, and that we're getting the driver's performance that we need from our drivers, and that we're getting safety results from them. So evaluation is a tool that we use to measure every driver that we have. Now, veteran drivers that we have, we go twice a year as far as evaluation, but we want to measure safety and we want to measure service. We want to make sure that we have all the information we need to put these evaluations together. And it's just so important that our drivers understand where do they stand and where do they measure, and based on the goals that we have for our company and goals that we have for them. Number 2, part of step 9 is accountability. Once we train drivers and they understand the nature of their work, what they're supposed to do, service, safety, motoring public, keeping themselves safe, then we could hold drivers accountable for their actions. It's hard to hold drivers accountable if we have not trained them properly. We train them, then we hold them accountable. Number 3 is corrective training. When a driver fails, whether it's in better, whether it was hard braking, whether it was in other areas not wearing seatbelts, or just poor performance and very low safety results, then we need to do corrective training to retrain drivers that do not meet up to the safety standards. We're going to do also route observation rides with them. But corrective training is very important because if we're holding drivers accountable for something they didn't do right, then there's going to have to be some training behind it. We want to make sure that drivers understand the proper way that they need to do whatever they failed in, because we need to make sure they meet up to the safety standard. It is so important. Number 4 is write-ups. Document, conversation, conduct, observation ride. Anytime a driver fails in something, that is so important. We need to make sure that we need to document conversation. Now, you could do that as a warning, just conversation, but make sure that when you sit down with the driver and you're having a conversation of something that was brought to your attention, even the conversation, document the date, document the time, and what took place in the conversation, because it may have to come back to that conversation again, where the driver said, well, nobody told me. Yes, we did. We sit down, we talk to you, and we have that conversation recorded. Number 5, driver disqualification. Any driver that has violated a company policy or policies or a safety violation will be subject to disqualification. I always want to make sure I put the word subject, because we're going to evaluate if we're going to disqualify the driver. Did we do everything possible to help this driver? Did we give that driver all the opportunities to do it right, and they still fail to make it right? Then we're going to disqualify the driver. Another word for disqualification could be termination. Now, keep in mind the reason why we have evaluation or evaluate accountability, curative training, write-ups, is because if we could do an evaluation, if we could do it right, if we could take the time to really evaluate our drivers, to measure our drivers' performance, then we probably don't have to do number 2, hold drivers accountable. Now, if we could do accountability, if we could take care of the accountability, hold drivers accountable for their actions to make sure we're doing that properly, we probably never have to do curative training. Now, curative training, if we could do curative training, if we could retrain drivers in areas that they have failed, to bring drivers up to meet standard, if we could do that correctly, we probably never have to do number 4, which is a write-up. Now, if we need to do write-ups, termination write-ups, first warning write-ups, suspensions, whatever we do under the write-up, or just document conversation, if we could do write-ups and really sit down with our employees, that they understand why we're writing them up, why we're giving them that write-up, what were the things, is because they already failed in some of the other areas. But if we could do a write-up properly, we probably never have to do number 5, driver disqualification. Many times we jump into a driver disqualification because they failed in a lot of areas. Then the driver feels, well, nobody ever hold me accountable. I never got trained. I never got retrained. Well, nobody ever talked to me about it. I had no conversations. You never gave me a warning, those kind of things. So it's so important that we always start with number 1, evaluate, number 2, accountability, and then go to number 3, curative training, and then number 4, write-up. Because once you get up to that level, then that means you've done everything you could to train this driver, to hold this driver accountable, to make sure this driver understands all the areas that he has failed in. So if we have to disqualify a driver, it's because we've done everything we could to help this driver to meet standard or to operate at the level that we want them to operate. And number 6, preventable accidents. Route observation rides within 48 hours to evaluate drivers' overall safety performance skills. We train drivers that when they get into an accident, how to fill out the accident packet, how to take pictures of the accident, all the things they need to do, gather witnesses, never admit at fault. But we want to make sure that we're training drivers and they understand all the procedures they need to do in the accident scene and all the things they need to do when, whether it's calling your immediate supervisor, let them know we got into an accident, calling 911, calling medical help in case there's people that are injured. So it's so important that we train drivers in preventable accidents or any kind of accident that we have. It could be a DOT recordable accident, just any accident that's involved one of our vehicles or a driver themselves. We need to make sure that they call our immediate supervisor, report it so we can start following all the proper procedures that we need to do. but also make sure that we conduct what we call a route observation right within 48 hours before we let that driver go back out the road again. We need to have a driver trainer or a supervisor that runs with that driver and conducts a route observation right. Now, we have our own route observation right that we put together, and I'd like to cover that with you. It's a route right evaluation. Basically, want to make sure we have our driver's name, truck number, date, beginning odometer reading, ending odometer reading, because we want to gather a lot of data on that particular day. Total stops, packages, event pickup packages, P&D start time, P&D end time. Now, we want to cover a lot of things here, not just the driving part, but we want to cover, is he doing a proper pre-trip on that vehicle? Is the vehicle clean, especially inside the cab? Is he in proper uniform the day that we're doing the observation right? Load secure, is the load secure? Do we have hazmat packages on the shelves or on the ground? Is all the load secure? Or is there opportunities for improvement? Van security, is he locking all the van doors, taking the key out of the ignition as we're making our deliveries? Driving procedure, is he driving the vehicle properly? Is he going around in circles, not going to the right places? So we need to make sure that he's taking care of those vehicles, no hard braking, no hard turns, hard accelerations. So we want to evaluate all the driving procedures that we have there. Now, the next step there is delivering and pickup procedures. So while we're on the route right with them, we also want to evaluate procedure techniques. Delivery procedures, is he leaving the packages at that right location, front door, behind the porch? Is he following all the procedures, leaving door tags on the door? Pickup procedures the same way. Is he showing up to the pickup customers on the proper window? Are we following all the proper procedures of picking up the freight? Route efficient, does he know this route properly? Or is he going around in circles again and not running too efficient? Keep in mind that if we could run these routes more efficient, we could probably even save an extra gallon of fuel per day if we're running these routes efficient. Customer courtesy, is he being friendly to our customer? Is he taking care of our customer by greeting our customer, good morning, good afternoon, especially we know them by name. Customer courtesy is so important, especially in today's time because of service. We want to make sure that we're giving the proper service. And to give the proper service, delivery procedures got to happen, pickup procedures got to happen. We got to show up to the customers' places on time. And we have to greet and take care of our customers. At the end of the day, post-trip, we want to make sure when those vehicles get back to the station that they're doing a proper post-trip, and that any items that are found, they list them on the pre-trip or DVIR. And also making sure that they're talking to the immediate supervisor to make sure, can we fix that night so that vehicle go out next morning en route again. We total their time divided by their stops to even get stops per hour. So this is one of the things we're also trying to evaluate. Does this route has way too many stops, or can we put more stops in this vehicle? Now, we also want to put reason for route right. Was it because of an accident? Was it because of a complaint? Was it because it's a new driver or other? It could be random. And then we put comments, have our employees sign the route right evaluation.